You're listening to Potato Pasta, the best stories from the internet narrated by a human. The following prompt was written by CatboyInAMaidOutfit. The Tin Man, a blade-wielding cyborg. The Enraged Lion, a genetically engineered chimera. The Scarecrow, a strategic assassin specializing in fear. And the deadliest of them all, their leader, a former refugee named Dorothy. The following response was written by Big Earl 020.
I think we need better names,
growled Enraged Lion, his deep red serpent tail snapping at the air to convey his frustration.
Speak for yourself, L,
retorted the cyborg, who sat on the last bed of the makeshift barracks.
I think Tin Man is a badass code name. It also weirdly makes people underestimate me. I wonder why.
And Scarecrow?
What? He loves his name. Don't you, buddy?
Asked Tin Man to the figure sitting on the first bed. Although he sat facing the entrance of the barracks, his head swiveled around 180 degrees to look at his companions behind him. Scarecrow's eyes were stitched shut, and his mouth was haphazardly sewn with a thick black twine, as if whoever had done it had extremely shaky hands and couldn't wait to run away. Scarecrow nodded and smiled at Tin Man in response to the question. The stitches around his mouth grew tight as he smiled, pulling taut the skin around it. He was a nice enough guy once you got to know him. The only scary thing about him lay within those thick gloves of his.
CL, he loves it. Besides, what are you gonna do about it? Ask her to stop calling you that. Oh, are you gonna pick a fight with her to change your name? I'd love to see that. While you're at it, maybe you could ask for your other snake back and be worthy of being called a lion,
said the sadistic half-human. He knew what would happen if any of them spoke up against their so-called leader. He just wanted to watch the carnage. Scarecrow's smile faded away, and even L, with his massive frame, seemed to cower a little at the mention of the sorceress. Yet, unlike the mute assassin, the lion wasn't too bright. He took the bait.
I will. I'll bite her throat out. I'll slice her tits off and then gouge out her heart. I'll crush that bitch's spine and make her...
The door to the barracks burst open and the whole room grew considerably darker and colder. If Tin Man could sweat, he would be despite the sudden cold. Thick, curly, and almost entirely opaque white tendrils of mist curled and slithered into the room. They wove their way around Scarecrow's bed and moved almost shyly towards the lion, who was now slowly backing away, his serpent tail tucked between his legs. He kept retreating towards the end of the barracks where Tin Man sat watching with anticipation, his glee almost uncontained because he knew what followed. The mist reached the poor chimera and wrapped around his limbs. Two more tendrils stretched out like arms and moved up to his head. One tendril went into L's nostril and the other into his mouth, which was suddenly flung open.
She's prying his mouth open,
processed Tin Man.
This is gonna be good.
A misty arm stretched into the gaping maw and yanked out L's tongue. Guttural, unintelligible pleading noises emanated from the creature's throat, but it was too late now. The tendril grabbing his tongue jerked once, and L let out a shrill whine in response. It yanked again, harder this time, and his tongue was ripped in half, along its length like a serpent's. Blood spurted from his mouth and painted the walls with dim red beads. Although L screamed bloody murder, he was still held down by the other mist tendrils. Slowly, the deathly white mist unfurled itself from around the chimera and retreated back into the dark doorway. Although the temperature and light inside the room returned to normal, it remained silent as a grave. L shuddered and fell unconscious to the floor, blood pooling around his head and soaking his mane. His tail swished around lethargically as if trying to wake its owner up. The silence was inevitably broken by Tin Man, the only one who had the ability to speak anymore.
Relax, L. Maybe some other day. You got off pretty easy too. I mean, you know what she did to Scarecrow's hands, right?
There was a low, sad moan from the first bed. The following response was written by Vanilup. The Emerald Wizard was pacing around his war table. His kingdom was at war. The land was torn by all sorts of arcane spells, the blood of his servants and casualties from both sides. He glanced at the wall. The posters of the most wanted rebels were there. The Tin Man, a blade-wielding cyborg. The Enraged Lion, a genetically engineered chimera. The Scarecrow, a strategic assassin specializing in fear. And the deadliest of them all, their leader, a former refugee named Dorothy. It had been 8 years since Dorothy clicked her heels and vanished from his life. He thought he would never see her again. It had been 3 years since the first Kanzanian came back. They reverse-engineered the boots and were trying to get back to Munchkinland for a better life and the poppy. Oh yeah, they wanted those poppy fields to make the smack. The first healers were very frightened by the journey and were welcomed with warmth. When the weaponry started showing up, some Munchkins were concerned, but some saw an opportunity for a better life. The first fight started in the east, as it was before. Dorothy arrived shortly after the rebels took their first town. She was not a little girl anymore, but a beautiful young woman who quickly became the leader. The old merry band gathered fast. The Tin Man was repurposed to be a blade-wielding cyborg. The Scarecrow used all of his brains to become a strategic assassin, specializing in fear. The Lion was very brave, and it got him in trouble. He was mortally wounded when an exploding coconut was dropped by a flying monkey on the rebels' camp. He shielded Dorothy and fell there. Kanzanians took his body to the lab and made a genetically engineered chimera, the Enraged Lion. The Emerald Wizard was not planning on giving up his dominion. His council of witches brewed powerful potions and elixirs to enhance his army, but the rebels had technology. The spells were devastating, but Kanzanians learned how to make wards. He was an inventor, so his war machines were armed with the most high-tech weapons available, but the resources to make more were out of his reach. He heard a captain who started reporting about another fight in the northern region. Kanzanians were making a battle drug out of poppy, which made them withstand much more wound than a normal human could. And in the end of the report, his eyes glinted with hope, because the captain told him that the Witch of the West has captured Dorothy and is keeping her in the tower. The Emerald Wizard grabbed his top hat and cane and ran towards a portal behind the curtain in the war room. Emerging in the witch's tower, he heard agonizing screams of Dorothy, who was tortured by the witch and her wooden machine servants. He went to the cell and saw in with his own eyes. It was, in fact, Dorothy. She was mature, worn by countless battles, but still had that sweet and innocent face and beautiful green eyes. She was wearing a dress, a tactical belt. Her hair was tied up into pigtails and a small urn was fashioned as a locket around her neck. The Emerald Wizard commanded everyone to leave them alone and sat on a small stool near the bars of the cell. "I can end this all by snapping your neck, you ungrateful little brat," he said.
Then hurry up and do it. I bet you're too weak to even do it yourself, you self-absorbed imposter. You try so hard to keep your small fragment of power, but you can't choke the people forever.
"You have no saying in this, woman. I saved you. I let you go. You can't even imagine how hard it was for me, but I did it anyway. You left me here to clean your merry mess, which you waltzed on that yellow brick road right to my doorstep. I thought we had a connection. I thought you understood me. What I went through to survive here. How I hid so many times from the predators and witches that it became a part of me, and I never wanted it for you. I thought by letting you go I would redeem myself."
You were drunk with your own scheming. I saw how it was with you. Behind that pretty face was a broken man who never had anything of worth in his life until he came here, where he became the Emerald Wizard. You're a con artist and nothing more. Surrender so your people can be free of the witches and oppression.
"Dorothy, I can't do that. I am in too deep."
Free me. Let me do it.
"I can't do that either. I'm sorry. It was nice seeing you, my love."
What?
said Dorothy as sharp pain came screaming in her chest. She looked down and a cane sword was piercing her. She lifted her eyes, staring right into the soul of her killer.
I loved you too, Doug. Like a father, or even more. Take care of Toto.
She nodded towards the small locket. The wizard reached for it and ripped it from her neck.
You keep him close to yourself. He was a good boy.
Said Dorothy.
I'll miss you both.
The wizard took out the sword and she fell to the floor bloody. The tear from his eye fell on his left hand as he was looking at the locket. It had a carving on the front. Toto. He turned it over and there was a small word inscribed. Dorothy whispered,
Get him, boy.
and the lid of the small urn popped. A cloud of white smoke rapidly poured out of there and formed a head of a huge dog. The wizard tried to throw the urn away, but the dog already started biting. A couple of massive bites and the left side of the Emerald Wizard's body was gone. As he fell, he hit his head on the bars and died instantly. His arm fell close to Dorothy, and she grabbed it. She was smiling, and her eyes were tearing as she saw Toto and the Emerald Wizard for the last time. Her eyelids became heavy, and there was nothing else left to do. Thanks for sticking with me till the end. If you enjoy my narrations, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you want to know when new videos come out, hit the bell and make sure you select all notifications. I know it's annoying to ask, but it really does help the channel reach more people. Thank you.